Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cocky.
He is Captain Foley.
I am. And we're here to talk today about a new ship, a new class, the Albina class, or more specifically, the Archimedes, from Episode 10 of Season 2 of Lower Decks, the finale, First Contact.
But Stuart, the fans are crying out, it's just an Excelsior class, right? TNG-ified, right?
At first glance, it looks like it, yes. However, upon closer inspection, as Trekyards tends to do, and as you're going to be dragged along with on this journey during this video, we compare it to the Excelsior and take a look at the differences. And there are a multitude of differences, actually.
And not just that, but we went in and we looked at all the different stills. We air enhanced them for extra clarity. We took them out of the picture so it's nice and clear. I've done some renders with the Enterprise B, I should say, and the Enterprise E in some shots to kind of see where it does collect. And I'm very pleased to say that in one particular view, we got a completely non-obscured, non-distortion side MSD style view, and I've got a direct orthographic view of that as well to get proportions, and that's going to be really fun as well. So a lot of blink and you'll miss it moments in the episode, and I've tried to capture as many as possible. But of course, Stuart, we have the initial collection of shots, very Excelsior, but with an Enterprise E style nacelles and deflector. That's kind of the vibe you get.
Yeah, there's definitely some Enterprise E inspiration there from this. Yes, those two things specifically. It's one of those things, like I said in our first reaction video, when the more you look at it and the more you examine it, you see things pop out. Boom, 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 boom.
While we know what Excelsior shape looks like, we know, but actually they've kind of obviously they've TNG-ified it. That's obvious, but you kind of forget what they've taken away to give that the evolution. So obviously the next render is the first time we properly see it. I thought we'd start right at the beginning, and straight away they ain't the same. None of those pieces are the same. The low planetary sensor is the same, but apart from that, they ain't the same.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that stands out to most people would again be the delta on the bottom. I don't know why they decided to do that.
I think we can agree that was a bit of a mistake. But it's a
cartoon. It's almost like this is a special representative ship, like an ambassador ship or something that's got to carry that Starfleet
that's
emblem.
Good. I mean, they are going a first contact mission dedicated. Obviously, Sirius being a second contact, but that seems garish and silly, and it's also the wrong logo for the era anyway. So
that's true.
It doesn't really make sense because this is clearly not a. I mean, you wouldn't be still building Excelsiors anywhere near this time period. Even in the refit, you'd even have stopped building. So this is obviously the replacement. Maybe
it was built at the end of the Excelsior run, which is the beginning of the TNG stuff, and that's why they got the new Delta, and they thought, we'll put the new Delta on there because it looks really cool, and it's just been on there ever since. It would be new to them, yes. There you go. It dates it. Tells you when it was made. But yes, it is kind of the personification of all the Excelsior stuff, but then upscaled a bit. It seems beefier, it seems chunkier, it seems more in line with, that Starfleet look with the way the neck is angled and things like that. That's one of the first...
You sort of forget the Excelsior has a flat neck. Because it's black, it's late, but no. And it does change the vibe. That hard angled, the crispiness of the Excelsior is lost here. It's now kind of integrated. I'm not sure why the curve is so, either make it an E style. It would have been great if it was connected to the saucer like this. Sovereign, I think that might have improved it maybe. Or even lower. I don't know why quite.
I disagree. I absolutely love this. This takes everything that I didn't like about the Excelsior design and smooths it over and fixes it. And I didn't like the Excelsior for a lot of years, guys, but the last few years it's really grown on me since I got the Art Asylum one. Diamond Select one. Really love the ship now. So, and the secondary hull is so much different. It looks like a standard Excelsior hull almost, but there are still the little flare outs at the bottom, very similar to the Enterprise B.
Again, you associate them being there, but you do forget that they go forward that much and kind of obscure the deflector, and so the angle's still there. They just cut all of the front bit off because that deflector really is prominent in this new version. Although I'm not sure why it has a bit in front of it.
That's cool, though. There's probably a reason for it, knowing Mike McMahon and crew.
Every time I see it, though, it just feels like you've got a spot on your nose that's, annoyingly in view. It's well, it's a pimple, yeah.
It's a starship pimple.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it just feels so out of place. I mean, obviously, it's got enough room to deflect, but those things are left open for a reason, and there's a thing there.
Another thing I noticed right away from this picture is the hump in the middle of the Excelsier's back that attaches the nacelles is very, very much pushed forward in this one. And yeah, the nacelles themselves are also very different in the struts.
There's a lot more going back as you go. Although I'm pleased to say the blinkies are sort of right. It is blue and green on either side, but for some reason the front are red, which is not right. They don't do blinkies particularly well on lower decks for whatever reason. Who knows? I'm trying to work out window scaling. We've been told it's larger, but I mean obviously this is a comparison render, etc. They look very comparable window scale. Like very, very comparable.
They do, but if you go back to the last picture and see that one shot of it, the beauty shot, like top left, you can see that there's like 3 rings of lights, 3 rows instead of 2. So it obviously says bigger, beefier hull. So
I'm glad I got that on our first reaction. I wasn't just making that up. Like, okay, good, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the saucer is thicker. I think just that. I think the neck is more squat, and the secondary hull is fatter, like down. And the saucer is just chunkier, and it all kind of comes together. But let's go to the next view. This I had to throw in, made me smile.
I thought the same thing.
Clearly a parallel. Come on, guys. We Star Trek 6'd it.
Yeah, and nice comparison here. Again, you can see the differences, just the way that neck curves at the one side. I mean, it's just not... Anyway, it just feels like a beefier version of the Excelsior.
And obviously we'll talk about it in a minute. But yes, the pylons are no longer right angle. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I just want to give credit for a lovely little... So I instantly thought Praxis when the thing happened.
I think most people did. Yeah, they would have had to.
But but it's not the same because the ship's flipped. But the next view, big beefy version. And this actually is really useful because this does show that, yes, it has those add-ons to the bottom secondary hull, which is so prominent on the B, and they are here, and your brain says they're the same, but no, they're visually reminiscent, but they're completely different, and I didn't clock them being that different. It's great.
Yeah, I really didn't even notice them. That's why I think a lot of people think it's the Excelsior, because they're so not prominent like they are on the B that you don't even really register they're there.
I definitely did, but I was kind of like, is it the B or Excelsior? So I kind of... But yeah, they're so different when you think about that.
They definitely beefed up the size of the deflector and moved it forward, which I appreciate. I think that looks a lot better. Honestly, I never really liked the Excelsior's dinky little deflector that's tucked back in there.
So advanced technology.
But then, yeah, the rows of windows around the front of the secondary hull are quite impressive looking. And as is that neck again. I got to point out that neck, how much beefier that looks. It just looks... It's stacked.
And now, actual usable, like fully usable space. Just having that as the extra windows really adds a lot of extra oomph to it. Although I'm not really a fan of the black additional just stripes on the front of the secondary hull. I think they should have been inset if they're going to be anything. I think they kind of just look like an add-on. I mean, so is the Enterprise B. Those are just add-ons, but the fact they're just hard black. I mean, what? I mean, if those are rooms, and literally the rooms are literally outside the hull.
They could be like shelves. That have windows, so I don't know. If you're in the room, that you can see it's just the extended.
Oh, yes,
just like, yeah, and I think it looks great. I think the black looks good. I think it ties into the Star Trek Online aesthetic a lot, and I like that.
It's just such a curvy organic ship, and so to have these just very simple rectangle, it's such like as they've stuck on with super glue, whereas the Excelsior is so.
That's literally what they did for the Enterprise B, the refit, and everybody hated it.
All integrates, and look how nice and sleek it is.
I know. And when they tried to take it off, they actually damaged the model. But that's another story for another time.
That is.
But yeah. No, I like it. I think... See, here we kind of disagree again. I think it looks a lot better for that.
Well, obviously, we've come from, I like the Excelsior of the class. You didn't. So you're seeing this as this is the better version, whereas I see the Excelsior is already the better version.
Like I said, it kind of improves everything that I didn't like about the Excelsior to the point to make me like it.
Also noting, even though I said in the earlier portion the lower sensor dome is the same, note they've halved as many of the outer lights. It's now 4 rather than the 6 or 8. So that's again feels the same but is different.
And the registry placement is very interesting. It's pushed forward. The delta kind of takes up the space of the other where it should be.
And the way it's kind of distorted, it feels as if there's a angle there, a curve. It's not a flat space.
It does, absolutely. NCC 83002.
Yeah, it's an 8.3. But I do think that's a bad positioning. It definitely gets lost
if it angled the other way, so it was facing forward, but it angles inward. So from this angle, it's hard to read, right? Like,
Yeah, I would have certainly tweaked that. And what do you think of the new blinky holders? I mean, the big giant, just shoved on. I don't know if they continue around the rest of the hull. We'll get there in a minute. But these big, there's blinkies are big as well, but just a big chunk of metal. What do you think?
Again, I like the look. It ties in with Star Trek Online, like I said, and I think it looks good. I don't know what purpose they would serve necessarily, but
yeah, it gives me Star Trek the Cage version vibes, referencing that.
That's another thing I was going to mention. Yeah,
similar but different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's keep this train rolling. Next view, and these were quite fun to make. The Enterprise B, lovely to like this model by Rob Bonchun, did this one. So we've got all three. We've got obviously the Enterprise B, we've got this new ship, and we've got the Enterprise E. Which I going into these comparisons, I thought, oh, it's gonna be a literal hybrid between the two. But there really isn't any Enterprise E in this design whatsoever, except the nacelles. So I kind of at some point just stopped doing the E renders because it isn't. That's not what they're pulling from. It's just a modified Excelsior variant. But still, to see how what inspiration they've taken. Here's the three in comparison. So what do you think? Looking at this.
Again, you can tell the huge differences in the secondary hull. Everything from that back bump to just the cutout the way it is to the scoop on, like, it's just so different to the Excelsior. The nacelles feel like a refined version of the Enterprise or the Sovereigns, like a newer version of them, because they're like not as bulky at the front. They're toned down. They added glows at the back for some reason, but that's okay.
See, I disagree. I think they look like older versions. Like we haven't got the materials to build properly like advanced ones. This is like version 0. If the Excelsior's version of E's version 7, these like version 4, because they're less big, less much, and also they are super low detailed on the show. They're just textured at the back. There's no registries. They're really oddly. We'll see in some of the renders. I guess they ran out of time to finish the texturing because they're really low texture. But I'm kind of surprised how they are literally just the Enterprise E nacelles, just like squat. There really isn't anything additional there. So I'm kind of disappointed because they didn't add a thing to the play really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And even the struts are very different. The E's kind of have the swept back look. The other ones kind of dive in a little bit differently. So
now, obviously, I've got the angle. Not. I'm trying to get as close as possible, but the angles are upswept in the new ship, but they're not. You would think you'd see them more if they were much more. I think they're a hybrid in between. They are somewhat straight, but also optical illusion there.
Yeah. And they're a lot different than people realize when they first look at it. The struts are different. They're exactly like the Enterprise E. They're not at all.
No, I mean, they're still. I mean, you can see how they connect. I mean, it's still very faithful to the original, where the design came from. It definitely does kind of feel like an in between. They brought elements. Although certainly the secondary hull elements, the back pieces, it's all there. They've just shrunk it and changed a few elements. It's like it is the Excelsior, but redistributed and definitely squattened. I'm sure the person who did this thought the length was a factor for the. Because you wouldn't call this new ship very long feeling. It kind of has that more stout, bulky, bricky feel rather than really because the Excelsior is very long.
Here too, I like the black lines that you were talking about. You didn't like around the front of the secondary hull. I like them here, and I like the long black one that goes around the whole entirety of the secondary hull. I think that looks great. Highlights the windows a lot better.
I just think if they're recessed, they would look sleek. But being outside the hull just looks like a not lazy add-on, just stuck. Okay, we're done. There's also an impulse engine behind the bridge. Because we removed impulse engines, the secondary ones, there's an impulse engine behind the bridge and 2 slit ones underneath the main impulse, which looks real weird, and we can see them in later shots. But behind the bridge, it's a bit weird.
Before we move on to the the profile view, which is very interesting, by the way, while it was tumbling, you do get kind of a shot of it, and you do see that the saucer is actually shaped very similar to the Enterprise E. It's more of an oval shape as opposed to a round shape. The Excelsior was very round. It kept that TOS proportions or like shapes and just kind of advanced them a bit. So again, that's another thing that's very different about the ship to the Excelsior is the shape of that saucer. And also the wideness of the secondary hull is also very much, I think it's pushed out. It's more thicker than it is on the Excelsior. So I just wanted to make those two comparisons. Like
only until we talked about this slightly earlier, I didn't even notice the ship's the saucer was oval, because it blends in so well to the vibe. I mean, most of the shots are obviously the front and the back, and that's not presented, but that obviously should change the vibe a lot. But it somehow doesn't until you show it in harsh contrast. So that was an interesting optical illusion.
Yeah, I think the silhouette from the bottom and the top would be very similar to the Enterprise E, more so than the Excelsior.
More so, I mean, it really just looks like a hybrid. I mean, the way we know how the secondary hull looks on the Excelsior, it's very similar shape-wise, just like I say, differently proportioned. God, it's very strange.
And now going to the profile view. Again, very different.
Very pleased to see this. Very pleased to have grabbed this, because, yeah!
Very different to the Excelsior, actually. And I'm not a huge fan of the profile, honestly. I think it needs more bulkiness near the front of the secondary hull. For as much as I love this ship design, yeah, beef out that secondary hull. I don't like the way that curve is going up into the neck. It just seems like it's lacking something.
See, that's what I meant. I could see that kind of weird vibe going in. But as a disclaimer, we don't know the scale of the ship, nor of the... This isn't obviously the E compared to the B scale. So proportionally, I've just lined them up. If you were to compare just the two sources, well, then it would be much smaller than the Enterprise B, so I don't even know what do you compare it against? If it's the same size, the proportions are radically different, but if the source is the same, it's much smaller. If the nacelle's the same, then it's much bigger. So I don't know, I couldn't even guess how big this one is, actually.
Yeah, we would need to get some size information, because I'd like to see them scaled to the Excelsior, or see it scaled to the Excelsior.
Because, yeah, the source was just really different. I don't know what to think, actually. My brain's confused by this.
It actually takes some stuff from Beta Canon. I can't remember the ship now, but
one
the
of
secondary hull, the front of that, and also that bulky section on the bottom, where the cutout is, that's on one of my things upstairs. It's one of the silhouette things.
There was an Excelsior concept that was more squat and everything was kind of weirdly proportioned. This, I think, they've taken inspiration from. Because just that back hull, just none of the shapes aren't quite... They're all kind of just... Whereas the Excelsior is like everything's really nice, and this is all like...
I think I know what it is. It's the history of the Enterprise, and it was the original Enterprise B design. I have it in a book upstairs, and it's very much... The neck doesn't point forward. It kind of angles like this, and has the... It's a weird design.
Because there's a lot of concepts in Enterprise for the Excelsior. There's a lot. It was it was the one after the Enterprise. I think I like it, but it's definitely not like... Well, it's not sleek, is it? But the whole thing's not sleek, so it's an odd metric to have.
I really appreciate the silhouette of the Enterprise B here out of all of them. I don't like the Enterprise E profile. I never have.
It's missing something.
It's totally missing something. I think it's just the lack of a neck for a Starfleet ship. But I think the Enterprise B here is beautiful. Everything works. It looks sleek. It looks fast. This other one just looks incomplete almost. the Archimedes.
It would be interesting, though, to take the silhouette and just stretch the secondary hull and see if it would, like, how quickly could you make it match?
Instantly that would improve it for me.
Yeah, I think, no, I've just said that, it's way too less. And it's not even like the secondary hull's longer. They haven't, like, pushed it forward and made it, because if that went back further, it might help, but I don't even think it would. Oh, it's weird. It's weird. But the next view, though, now this, I was not expecting the amount of detail they brought, although you can see, oh my goodness. So obviously this is one of those tumbling shots. So this next view, obviously, very detailed. You can see a slight disparity between the two nacelles, but that's because one's dirty, but the left-hand side, you can see how, like, basic the shapes are. I mean, literally, you can see the hard angle. So I think they definitely ran out of time on the nacelles, whereas, the secondary hull, nice and smooth, lots more going on. And also, this is now turned off, so the glows aren't as powerful, so you can kind of get the shapes without noticing the rest. This definitely feels more familiar. It re-harnesses that Enterprise B vibe more.
And here it also accentuates the shape of the saucer. You can see that it's an oval as opposed to a
And that's
circle.
why I couldn't match the angle. I wasn't working out. I was like, this isn't quite working. It's because of the cells. Yes, that's why. You can't match a saucer.
And I appreciate the amount of detail they've got on that underside of the secondary hull, like the scoop out. Like, they put a lot of detail and cool things in there. So,
what's it trying to be, though? Because the Excelsior says it's a dedicated cargo bay, which I always loved the amount of
cargo and receiving bay. Yeah, it looks like a huge, like auditorium window.
Yeah, it does. It's like a sunroof, but just like on its side.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I don't imagine that's lit though in any shot. So I don't think it's a glowy or anything. Like, I don't remember seeing that at any point lit. But it's a very odd. Like it isn't detailed, but there's a detail there. It reminds me of? It reminds me of the other pod in Battlestar Galactica, the one that's a museum. Just like, yeah, we'll just cover it in glass. Museum now. So that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it would have actually been cool to have like 2 shuttle bays there or something, like 2 doors. Like you could have definitely added something in there.
No, you're right. Actually, it would have been I think, especially if it's a first contact ship, having a huge shuttle. I don't know what those side impulse red glow bits are underneath the impulse. We saw them in a previous shot. They're just kind of. I mean, does it need side impulse units? Maybe it's for maneuverability.
Ooh, so it can turn really fast.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Maybe they learned their lessons from the Dominion War and needed something way more maneuverable that could like turn on a dime and shoot something behind it.
It's turn on the dime class. So the next view is all 3, and this is like one of the best shots of it. I think, jumping out of warp. So you kind of get to see all the different elements fully lit, and also you can compare the nacelles, etc. The pylon, which again is a nice hybrid between the two.
Yeah, this one, the one that stands out as my favorite is the Archimedes here, hands down. It just looks like a nice beefy version of a starship. The Excelsior, like the Enterprise B's straight 90-degree struts, always bothered me.
I always like them. What's standing out here to me, and obviously these 3 aren't to scale, so don't take that as readily, but that bridge dome, that feels out of proportion. And that isn't a front window, that's just a detail, that's just a lighting detail. But that bridge dome feels real massive. I mean, the Excelsior one is actually not necessarily correctly in proportion either, but...
Well, yeah, the Excelsior one, the bridge is actually sunk down, with just the top of the bridge showing. That's the idea, because it doesn't scale properly. So that's what they've said. It's kind of inset. So it is what it is, guys. It's on the top, but it's not totally vulnerable. So,
but doesn't that feel too big? Because you can see the window scale around the rim, and that bridge dome is like, what, 2 decks big?
I'm going to say there's usually like some kind of equipment on top of the bridge of these ships, but if you actually see the windows out the top, so...
Well, at least it means there is no bridge window, because the bridge is only a small segment of that top, because you can see the top. So it's just, I guess their B deck is really tiny as well, and the C deck's really tiny as well, and then all the other decks are big. It just like, it feels in proportion if you don't think about scale, but as soon as you think scale, it's completely out of whack.
Yeah. And we don't know the scale, guys, so we don't know how to compare it.
I'm just using windows.
Yep. But if you look at the windows in the saucer compared to the windows in the neck, there's a disparity.
There is, but they're further away and less bright. So whereas the other ones have.
Look at the Excelsior right above it, and the little windows match up with the little windows pretty good. So,
but in fairness,
but
in fairness, the neck ones are smaller than the windows slightly. Not as much as the other one, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's animated. People are going to point that out, that we're nitpicky, but they're actually I know, they pay a lot of attention to details, so we love it.
I guess last question from me. Yellow deflector, Enterprise E inspired thoughts.
I like it because we never got the tradition of carrying that on, really. So if that's like the new style, sure. I prefer a blue deflector personally. It's good to see that call back to the Enterprise E in the yellow. Plus, it's nice and bright. I never really liked the Enterprise E's because it's so dark. Because it's lit up, but it's also got a whole bunch of crap on it. So it's a very weird deflector in general. So I like it. I just wish it was blue. That would make it better.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's nice to see a design not just abandoned, but certainly it's a bit weird. I prefer blue, but...
And then we got this view, which is like this at the end of the episode, and it actually looks kind of lanky here. It doesn't look as beefy from this angle. It's
whole different, isn't it? It definitely feel the oval saucer more here. That reproportions the whole thing, and it makes you think that secondary hull at the end bit is much longer than it is. This feels the whole thing's been stretched, but it hasn't been.
Yeah, it's a weird angle for sure. It's one of those ships that, yes, looks amazing from a lot of angles, but there's the odd angle where it just looks wrong. This is kind of that for me.
Well, then we can end back on the first picture with all the many views, so I'm sure you like one of them. So there you go, guys. What a review, one of our longest ones for a while, but hey, you give the ship time, you get views, we're going to analyse it, and it ain't just no Excelsior, as we found out. So well done, Team Lower Decks, making all these new ships, all these new treks. Hopefully we get to talk to the designers at some point, see the thought process, and I'm sure Eagle Moss will release it at some point.
Yes. The new Albina class, the Archimedes, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Like the video if you did. Put your comments down below what you thought about the video, what you think about it compared to the Excelsior and the Enterprise E. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And the Enterprise B. Sorry, I didn't say that. Enterprise E, B, and the Excelsior. Put your thoughts down below. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel, notified, all that jazz. And join us for the lives where we talk about this kind of stuff. And it's so much more. And we love to do those every week. So tune in.
I mean, you've seen here. Amazing, all the stuff. And of course, if you want to, these comparisons do take time, effort, and therefore rent money, etc. So support us if you can via Patreon, PayPal, join the channel, or join those lives and super chat if you can. If you can't, don't worry. Enough of you do give to keep us ticking along, but we do always need more support to keep us through those days. So if you can, please do. Thanks in advance, and tune in for the next ship video, as I guess Prodigy comes out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Goodness. Yeah. Protostar.
Lots more Trek coming, guys. All right, so until next time, he is still Commander Cockings.
He is Captain Foley.
And we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.